How are you guys doing? Today is Tuesday, January 11th, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review yesterday's Elite matchups and performances from Monday, January 10th, 2022, the final day of the collegiate football season from 2021, and of course taking a look of where we are, taking a look at the collegiate ranks, starting with the college football national championship game. The third ranked Georgia Bulldogs would end up beating the first ranked Alabama Crimson Tide 33-18 as they were able to clinch their team's first championship since 1980, ending a 41-year drought from that since the last time they won that title, being in the SEC. Looking at how the scoring went, Alabama scored the first field goal of the game, making it 3-0 in the first half. Then both teams would each score 2 field goals in the second quarter, making it 9-6 in favor of Alabama going into halftime. The lone score in the third quarter was a 1-yard touchdown run from Zamir White to put UGA up 13-9. In the fourth quarter, a field goal would bring Alabama to within 1, and then their next drive would end off of a 3-yard touchdown pass from Bryce Young to Cameron Latu, putting Alabama up 18-13. Georgia would score 20 unanswered points to finish off this game and win. Their next touchdown would be a 40-yard touchdown pass from Stetson Bennett to Adonai Mitchell, but the 2-point conversion failed. So after that, Georgia was only up 19-18, up by 1. With 3.5 minutes left, Brock Bowers would catch a 15-yard touchdown pass from Stetson Bennett to go up by 8 over Alabama, so making it a 1-possession game. And then with 1 minute left, Bryce Young would throw an interception. It was a pick six from Khalil Ringo, 79 yards to give Georgia this very big title win and the very first since Kirby Smart has been the head coach there. Taking a look, and of course with this win, Georgia will finish at 14-1, and I will have a championship profile for them after this. But of course, after Atlanta's won, the state of Georgia is of course enjoying this championship fever right now. And as someone that was born in the state, I can tell you that Georgia is most definitely celebrating this win, especially because they've been waiting for Georgia to beat a team, and not just any team, they beat Alabama to do so. But with that said, the 2021-22 season has come to an end. But taking a look at how both teams fared statistically, on the losing end, the first-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide were led by their starting quarterback, last year's Heisman, Bryce Young. He will go on to throw for 369 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Their leading rusher was Brian Robinson Jr. He had 22 carries for 68 yards on the ground. He had 28 yards through the air as he finished with 96 yards of total offense. Their leading receiver was Cameron Latu. He had 5 receptions for 102 yards and a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, their leading tacklers were Christian Harris and DeMarco Helms. They both had 7 tackles. Christian Harris finished with 3 of the team's 5 sacks, and the other 2 sacks went to Dallas Turner as he had 4 total tackles on the day. On the winning end of this matchup, the third-ranked Georgia Bulldogs were led by their starting quarterback, Stetson Bennett. The former JUCO quarterback, the first former JUCO quarterback to start in a national championship game, would end up throwing for 224 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher was Zamir White. He had 13 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown. Their second leading rusher, James Cook, had 77 yards on the ground and 15 yards through the air. That's 92 yards of offense. Their second leading receiver, Adonai Mitchell, had 2 receptions for 50 yards as he had a receiving touchdown. Their leading tacklers on the day were Quay Walker and Channing Tyndall. They each had 8 tackles on the day. Channing Tyndall would finish with a sack for himself. And in their secondary, Christopher Smith would go on to finish with 7 tackles as he had an interception, and Khalil Ringo would finish with 6 tackles alongside his 79-yard pick six. With this win, the third-ranked Georgia Bulldogs finished their season with a 14-1 record, and I will do a championship profile like I mentioned earlier. With this loss, the first-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide are now 13-2 as they will finish off their season, a very, very good one, still with a lot to hang their heads on, especially having Bryce Young be their very first quarterback in Alabama history to win the Heisman at that position. So, of course, a lot of congratulations to both teams. And with that said, I'm going to skip over college basketball because there were no top 25 opponents that were playing yesterday. And of course, looking at the NFL, the next NFL games will be taking place on Saturday, as those will be the first day of the wild card round. And then, of course, taking a look at what went down in the NBA yesterday, starting off in Charlotte, the Hornets hosted the defending champs Milwaukee Bucks. The Hornets would beat the Bucks 103-99. The Hornets won this matchup by 4 after outscoring the Bucks by 9 in the first quarter and by 10 in the third. On the losing end of this matchup, the Bucks were led in scoring by their starting small forward, their former All-Star Chris Middleton. He finished with 27 points, 7 rebounds, 11 assists, and 3 steals, alongside 7 turnovers in 37 minutes. He would go on to shoot 10 for 19 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the line. Their elite starting power forward and former two-time NBA MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo finished with 26 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists, and 6 turnovers in 35 minutes. He shot 10 for 18 from the field, and he shot 1 for 5 from 3, and he also shot 5 for 8 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Charlotte Hornets were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard Terry Rozier out of Louisville. He finished with 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 steals in 40 minutes. He shot 8 for 17 from the field, 4 for 11 from 3, and 7 for 8 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard and former NBA Rookie of the Year, LaMelo Ball, finished with 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists in 35 minutes. He shot 8 for 19 from the field, 4 for 12 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the Charlotte Hornets are now 22-19. That is currently the 8th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've won their last 3 games. They've won 6 of their last 10. They currently sit 6 games behind the first seed Chicago Bulls in the East. With this loss, the Milwaukee Bucks are now 26-17. That is the 4th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've lost their last 2 games. They've lost 4 of their last 10. They now trail the first place Chicago Bulls by 3 games in the conference. Taking a look now at what went down in Detroit, the Pistons hosted the Utah Jazz, and they were able to pull off a 126-116 win. They won this matchup by 10 after they outscored the Jazz by 17 in the third quarter and by 6 in the fourth by a combined 23 points in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Jazz were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard out of Louisville, Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell finished with 31 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 37 minutes. He shot 11 for 27 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and 6 for 7 from the foul line. Their starting center, Hassan Whiteside, had finished with 21 points, 14 rebounds, 2 steals, and 3 blocks in 34 minutes. He shot 10 for 15 from the field and 1 for 2 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Detroit Pistons were led in scoring by their starting small forward, Saddiq Bey, and their starting point guard, last year's number 1 overall pick, Cade Cunningham. Bey finished with 29 points and 6 rebounds in 37 minutes. He shot 10 for 14 from the field, 5 for 7 from 3, and he shot a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. Cade Cunningham finished with 29 points, 8 assists, and 2 steals, as well as 2 blocks and 5 turnovers in 38 minutes. He shot 10 for 17 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the Detroit Pistons are now 9-30. That is the second worst record in the Eastern Conference and the NBA, as there are no teams in the West still with a single-digit amount of wins. The Pistons have won their last 2 games. They've won 4 of their last 10. They now trail the 8th-seed Charlotte Hornets by 12 games in the conference. With this loss, the Utah Jazz are now 28-13. That is the 3rd best record in the Western Conference. They've lost their last 3 games, and they've lost 4 of their last 6. They sit 3 games behind the first seed Golden State Warriors and Phoenix Suns for the time being. Jumping out to Boston, the Celtics hosted the Indiana Pacers, and in a game that went to overtime, the Celtics would outscore the Pacers 12-9 in overtime to beat the Pacers by 3, 101-98 for the game. On the losing end of this matchup, the Indiana Pacers were led in scoring by their starting small forward, Torrey Craig. Torrey Craig would go on to finish with 19 points in 31 minutes as the forward out of South Carolina State would finish with, he shot 8 for 12 from the field, and he shot 3 for 4 from the foul line. I didn't mean to say South Carolina State. He went to South Carolina Upstate. On the winning end of this matchup, the Boston Celtics were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, their former All-Star out of Cal, Jaylen Brown. He finished with 26 points, 15 rebounds, and 6 assists in 44 minutes. He shot 11 for 26 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. Their elite starting small forward out of Duke, Jason Tatum, finished with 24 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 turnovers in 42 minutes. He shot 7 for 21 from the field and 10 for 11 from the foul line as he made some big shots down the stretch. With this win, the Boston Celtics are now 20-21. That is the 10th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've won their last 2 games. They've won 5 of their last 10. They sit 2 games behind the 8-seed Charlotte Hornets outside of the playoff picture. With this loss, the Indiana Pacers are 15-26. That is the 3rd worst record in the East. They've lost 8 of their last 10 games, and they now sit 7 games behind the 8-seed Charlotte Hornets for the time being. Jumping out to Madison Square Garden, the New York Knicks hosted the San Antonio Spurs. The Knicks would beat the Spurs by 15. They won this one 111-96. They went on to outscore the Spurs by a combined 13 points in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Spurs were led in scoring by their starting point guard, DeJounte Murray. He finished with 24 points, 5 assists, and 2 steals in 30 minutes. He shot 11 for 19 from the field, and he made his only free throw attempt of the day. On the winning end of this matchup, the Knicks were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard out of Duke, R.J. Barrett. He finished with 31 points he also finished with 3 rebounds and 4 assists in 31 minutes. He shot 12 for 20 from the field, and he shot 3 for 4 from 3 and 4 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the New York Knicks are now 20-21. That is the 5th worst record in the East. They've won 6 of their last 10. They sit 2 games behind the Charlotte Hornets in the outside of the conference. With this loss, the San Antonio Spurs are now 15-25. That is the 5th worst record in the Western Conference. They've lost their last 3 games. They've lost 7 of their last 10. They sit 5 games behind the 8-seed Minnesota Timberwolves in the West. Jumping out to Houston, the Houston Rockets hosted the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers would end up beating the Rockets 111-91. They won this matchup by 20 after they outscored the Rockets by 9 in the first quarter, 12 for the first half, and then 7 in the third. On the losing end of this matchup, the Houston Rockets were led in scoring by their starting center, Christian Wood, and their starting shooting guard, Jalen Green, the number 2 overall pick from last year's draft. Christian Wood finished with 14 points and 6 rebounds in 36 minutes. He shot 5 for 12 from the field and 3 for 4 from the foul line. Jalen Green finished with 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 turnovers in 30 minutes. He shot 6 for 12 from the field. With this win, on the winning end of this matchup, the Philadelphia 76ers were led in scoring by their elite starting center, Joel Embiid. He finished with 31 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 blocks in 26 minutes. He shot 9 for 16 from the field, and he shot a perfect 13 for 13 from the foul line. With this win, the Philadelphia 76ers are now 23-16. That is the 5th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've won their last 7 games, which is the best winning streak in the Western Conference and the 2nd best winning streak in the NBA, right behind the Grizzlies. The Sixers have won 8 of their last 10 games. They sit 4 games behind the 1st seed Chicago Bulls in the playoff push. With this loss, the Houston Rockets are now 11-31. That is the worst record in the Western Conference. They've lost their last 3 games. They've lost 9 of their last 10, and they currently sit 10 games behind the 8-seed Minnesota Timberwolves outside of the playoff picture. Taking a look now at what's going down in Sacramento, the Kings hosted the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavaliers would end up beating the Kings 109-108. They won this matchup by 1 after they outscored the Sacramento Kings by 13 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown Kings were led in scoring by their starting point guard, Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton finished with 21 points and 8 assists, as well as 3 steals in 36 minutes. He shot 8 for 16 from the field and 3 for 4 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Cleveland Cavaliers were led in scoring by their starting center, Jared Allen, and their power forward off the bench, Kevin Love. Allen finished with 18 points, 17 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 31 minutes. shooting 8 for 14 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. Kevin Love finished with 18 points and 2 blocks in 21 minutes. He shot 5 for 13 from the field. He would go on to shoot 6 for 7 from the foul line as well. With this win, the Cleveland Cavaliers are now 23-18. That is the 6th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've won 4 of their last 10. They now trail the Chicago Bulls by 5 games in the conference. With this loss, the Sacramento Kings are now 16-27. That is the 4th worst record in the West. They've lost their last 5 games, just to give a sense of where they are. That is the worst losing streak in the West. And that is currently the 2nd worst losing streak in basketball, as the Magic is at 9 right now. But the Kings have lost 7 of their last 10. They sit 5.5 games behind the 8 seed Minnesota Timberwolves in the conference right now. Last but not least, jumping out to Portland, the Trailblazers hosted the Brooklyn Nets. The Blazers would end up beating the Nets 114-108. This was a makeup game. And in this matchup, the Trailblazers were able to win this matchup by 6 after outscoring the Nets by 13 in the third quarter. On the losing end of this matchup, the Brooklyn Nets were led in scoring by their goated starting power forward out of Texas, Kevin Durant. Durant finished with 28 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals, all in 42 minutes. He shot 9 for 19 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 8 for 8 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard out of Duke, Kyrie Irving, finished with 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists in 40 minutes. He shot 9 for 21 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and he made his only free throw attempt of the night. Their shooting guard off the bench, Cam Thomas out of LSU, would finish with 21 points and 3 steals in 26 minutes. He shot 8 for 12 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and he made one of his 2 free throw attempts on the night. On the winning end of this matchup, the Trailblazers were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Anthony Simons. He finished with 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 11 assists in 38 minutes. He shot 10 for 24 from the field, and he would make one of his 2 free throw attempts on the night. Their starting power forward, Robert Covington, finished with 21 points, 3 steals, 3 blocks, and 5 fouls in 34 minutes. He shot 6 for 9 from the field, 5 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. Then their starting shooting guard out of Kansas, Ben McLemore, finished with 20 points and 5 rebounds, as well as 2 blocks in 31 minutes. He shot 6 for 11 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, and he made 3 of his 4 foul attempts of the night. With this win, the Portland Trailblazers are now 16-24. That is the 10th best record in the West. They've won their last 2 games, and they've won 4 of their last 10. They sit 4 games behind the 8 seed Minnesota Timberwolves in the conference. And with this loss, the Brooklyn Nets are now 25-14. That is the 2nd best record in the Eastern Conference. They've lost 6 of their last 10 games. They sit 2 games behind the Chicago Bulls for the 1st seed in the Eastern Conference, just to get a sense of how close they are. And that is what the NBA is looking like after yesterday's performances. Taking a look at what's going on today, starting with the primetime matchups. At 8 o'clock, the Memphis Grizzlies, who are holding the 4th best record in the West, are going to host the Golden State Warriors in the FedEx Forum. The Warriors are tied with the Phoenix Suns for the best record in the NBA. And then at 10:30 in the Crypto.com Arena, the LA Clippers, who are holding the 9th best record in the West, are going to host the Denver Nuggets, who currently hold the 6th best record in the West. That game is, like I said, it's going to be in LA. Looking at the games that aren't going to be on primetime, at 7 o'clock, the Washington Wizards are going to host the Oklahoma City Thunder in the Capital One Arena. At 7:30, the Toronto Raptors are going to host the Phoenix Suns at the Scotiabank Arena. At 8 o'clock, the New Orleans Pelicans are going to host the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Smoothie King Center. And at the same time, the Chicago Bulls, who hold the best record in the East, are going to host the Detroit Pistons in the United Center. So that is what the NBA is looking like. Last but not least, taking a look at what went down in the world of soccer. Starting off in the lone English FA Cup matchup, Manchester United would advance past the 3rd round after beating Aston Villa 1-0. Their lone goal coming from their Scottish midfielder Scott McTominay in the 8th minute. And then taking a look now at what's going on today. Today, the Premier League will continue, but of course, the Africa Cup of Nations is still in its group stage. Taking a look first at what went down in yesterday's yesterday's matchup, specifically in this. Senegal was able to beat Zimbabwe 1-0 off of a 97th minute penalty from their elite winger Sadio Mane. That was the big matchup from yesterday. Taking a look at what's going on today in that tournament, Algeria is going to face off against Sierra Leone. Nigeria is going to face off against Egypt, as Egypt, of course, has Mo Salah on it. And then Sudan's going to face off against Guinea-Bissau. Looking at what's going on in the Premier League, Everton versus Leicester City looks to be the biggest domestic game that's going on. But of course, with that said, I will have more for you tomorrow as all of today's exhibitions are done. I want to first thank ESPN, the NCAA, NFL, NBA, and FIFA websites for giving me all the facts and figures that I needed for this episode. I do apologize for some of the names that I butchered because I do plan on getting the names right eventually. I don't know if there'll be a day where I get them all right. And of course, with that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to all 20 minutes of this piece. I hope all is well, and I have a good amount of episodes more to do today. But with that said, I want to thank you for sticking with me as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. I'm James Sims. I hope all is well. Thanks for listening to my piece, and I'll catch you with another piece tomorrow. Peace out.